Well, good day, folks. The cold weather is here, which means we're going to be spending a lot more time in the shop. I got enough to work on as it is, but found another good marketplace deal this morning. Got up at the ass crack of dawn, went out, picked it up, and I just got back with it. So we're going to go ahead and get it unloaded and check it out. Well, as usual, I got to make room. Used to have room to work on stuff in here. Now it's like every time I get something new, I gotta move 7 to 10 things out of the way to get whatever it is I'm working on in the door. But that's just how it goes, I guess. All right, well there she is, in all its glory. But you never would have guessed it was going to be a garden tractor, hey? Yeah. So again, didn't really need another one. But man, when you see these things on Marketplace or Craigslist for sale, it's kind of hard to pass them up when they're priced right. So, and as you can see, came with a tiller, snowcaster, dozer blade, and there is a 44-inch mower deck in the bed of the truck yet that I'm not even going to try to get out by myself. So yeah, it's a Case 222. I wish it was a 400 series, but again, the price was right, so I'll take a 200 series. It's got a Kohler K301 in it that has seen better days, and by has seen better days I mean it's locked up tight. So we're going to see what happened with that. Maybe try and rebuild it, depending on what happened. I'm not sure what happened. The older gentleman that owned it doesn't really know what happened to it either. He just said that it started making some funny noises and then stopped running, and now the engine is locked up. So my guess is broken connecting rod, but I don't know. I don't know the Kohler engines very well at all, to be honest with you, and I don't really know anything about the K301. Other than that, it's a single cylinder. I think it's 12 horse, and rebuild kits are pretty cheap. So hoping that it can just be rebuilt and I won't have to do a repower. But engine aside, this was still a hell of a deal with everything that came with it. As you can see, it's got the hydraulic tiller on it. This is the larger model. I don't remember what size it is, if it's like the J17 or whatever, but it's the one that's for the 400 series. But he said it worked just fine on here, but maybe we'll have to try it out. Does have a sleeve hitch on it, That's not a 3-point, it is a sleeve hitch. It's different than the linkages that I've seen before for the sleeve hitches, and maybe that's because the only other one that I've seen was the one that I fabricated myself for my old 446, but this all appears to be factory. Yeah, and as you can see, it's got the hydraulic PTO. That's a huge plus. Those are super hard to find around here. I don't know why. The tractors themselves are kind of like, not a dime a dozen, but you see them come up for sale, you know, probably 4 or 5 a month in the area that I'm in. But you know, as far as attachments and stuff like that, it's usually just the tractors, and even if they do have rear attachments, hydraulic attachments, they're usually missing the PTO for some reason. So that being the case, another one of the reasons that I decided to grab this thing, even though the engine's blown up, just from the sheer fact of everything that it has with it, right? Like, I mean, this tiller alone probably worth about $300. Snowcaster, I mean, rebuilt, might be able to get $300 for it as it sits, $75 to $100 in this area. The dozer blade, if you get the right person, you know, $200. And the tractor itself, running, I mean, I'd probably ask $1,000 for it. I don't know, you know, probably could get more, maybe a little bit less. It really depends on where you're at, what time of the year it is, and who's looking. But it's got new front tires on it. It's got new rear tires on it. It does have wheel weights. The rear tires are ATV tires, and those are not the original 222 rims that are on there right now. The guy thought he had the original rear rims for it somewhere, but so he was gonna dig around through his sheds and see if he could find those and let me know if he's got them. But this cab on here is definitely coming off. I mean, obviously you can tell just by looking at it that's something homemade, but he had it on there for blowing snow and had his little light in the back there and everything. But said it worked well for him, but I'm gonna be taking it off there. Yeah, and I mean, that's really about all that I know about it so far. The Snowcaster, it works. It's in decent shape. I'm probably going to go through that and rebuild it as I did the L84 that I had for the 446. You know, if anything, I might just take it all apart, clean it, and repaint it. Depends on how decent the bearings are in it. You can see he has a new pulley on the jack shaft, and I think that's a new tensioning idler pulley there as well. But it spins freely. It's pretty. Sounds kind of you know, gritty, but that's mostly just because of the chain over here is really loose and it's dragging. Looks like he put a new piece of steel on here for a cutting edge, and then he does have this mounted on wheels, and I think that's because he was using it to clear a gravel driveway, but I'm probably going to take those off of there. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen with the dozer blade. I'm sure I'll keep it. Don't really have a use for it as it sits right now, but you know, it's a lot of potential here, I guess. A lot of potential. So it looks like the cab is just held on with 8 bolts. He's got 2 in the front there and 2 at the back, and then same on the other side. So we're gonna go ahead and get that get those undone and get the cab taken off and get that out of the way. I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Might just end up going to scrap, but we'll see what happens. So we had that held on with carriage bolts, and then on the opposite side of the head of the bolt had the end of the bolt peened over on top of the nut. So that was kind of irritating to get those off of there, but it's off anyway, so let's lift that thing off of there. Well, that was a less than ideal way to get that cab off of there, but at least it's off. I don't think I'm going to be putting that back on there. Anyway, let's keep going. I got a little bit more custom cab right there that I got to get off yet. That's just a 2x4 and some plywood that's screwed to the running board over there that I want to take off yet, and then we should be able to comfortably start tearing into the engine on this thing. All right, we're going to go ahead and pull the spark plug and see what we can see down in the bore. Piston's right up at the top. No, it's not. Never mind. This is a flathead. Isn't it? Yeah, it is. So I'm not going to be able to see much at all without taking the head off, I would think. So I think we're just going to go ahead and do that and see what we can see. Well, she don't look good, but she don't look terrible. Still not 100% sure where it's locked up at. I'm thinking about grabbing a block of wood and just tapping on the piston a little bit. Not sure what all that white shit is there. Never seen that before when looking at the inside of a little flathead engine like this, but piston kind of looks like it's a little bit misshapen there over on this edge, but I'm not 100% sure. I just want to throw a little bit of oil in there and then just give it a little bit of a tap and see what happens. I'm not sure if it's frozen right by like the rings, or if it's connecting rod's broken and it's locked up further down, but we'll give it a little bit of a tap here and see what happens, and hopefully not make too much of a mess. So this 100% didn't lock up from sitting. This was locked up under power. So to me, I don't know, it almost seems like overheating to the point that maybe the ring swelled and then I locked up in the bore. But I really probably sound like a moron. I don't really know 100% what would have happened. But all we can do is just keep going piece by piece and see what we find, I guess. Try and keep the splashing to a minimum here. I really don't think this is going to move, and if it is, I have a feeling it's just going to move down, and then we're not going to see any rotation out of the crank, because I think this is a broken rod, but we'll see. don't think she moved at all. Starting to feel like it's going down just a little bit, so and if it is, I have a feeling I'm going to be scratching the shit out of the walls of the bore, but I'm not really sure how else I'd be able to get the piston out of there regardless. It does seem to be moving down a little bit. I think we're slowly making some progress there, but who knows what kind of damage we're doing in the process. The good news is that the bore doesn't actually look too bad. It looks pretty decent, actually. I can see one sort of vertical scoring mark kind of right there, and the rest of it is pretty clean. So that's a good sign. Even if the crank is bad, I might still be able to reuse the block. I think that's kind of the end of the travel there for the piston. Well, that's interesting. I'm prying up on the flywheel here, and we still have movement out of the piston now. I wonder if he's gonna come back down or get stuck at the top. Well, you're not going to believe this, but I feel like if I toss this thing back together, it might actually run. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. Kind of sketched out about trying that. Just because of the shape that it's in, I don't want to make it any worse when it's clearly a good candidate for a rebuild. But check this out. So like cleaned up all the shit that was along the surface of the bore over here, and can actually make full revolutions just grabbing the crank and or the pulley on the front of the crank here and just rotating it. So it's actually, I mean, it's pretty good. It's loosening it up more the more that I move it. So I'm thinking it was kind of just all this extra shit that was built up in here, all that white stuff. I don't know what that was. I mean, it's not corrosion. I'm not 100% sure how that happens or what it is, or the best way to even get it off. I've just been lightly scraping at it with a pick and a screwdriver, which, you know, probably not the best way to do it, but I don't think these old Kohlers care really much, really much, all that much. But anyway, yeah. All right. So it looks like we got everything we need. We got our intake stroke right there. And here's an interesting thing. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not, but as I bring the piston back up right now, the exhaust valve is opening ever so slightly, and that's the they call it the ACR, the Kohler automatic compression release. So that's that right there. And I suppose that would have been the power stroke. And now you got your exhaust stroke, exhaust valve just opened. We're back to the intake. So she's a little bit stiff. I mean, it's probably just the angle that I'm working from, but obviously it freed up. I mean, from the first part that we saw there where I was beating on it with the stick, but I'm tempted to put it together after I do quite a bit more cleaning here, and trying to run it and just see what happens, just to see what else we have going for us. I mean, if we got, I wasn't able to check spark or anything like that, obviously. I'm still thinking that it would be worth rebuilding. I mean, I saw rebuild kits on eBay for these things for like 50 bucks. So, I mean, at that price point, it's like, what the hell? I don't know if the parts are any good, though. That's the other thing. I know Norman from iSave Tractors sells all sorts of parts for the Kohler K series engines. Apparently that's kind of their thing over there, I guess. But I'm not sure what his kits are going for, but if I'm looking at keeping this thing long term, maybe it's worth spending the money on a good rebuild kit. But because the rest of this thing is in really good shape. The only other thing that I was worried about is when the guy was pulling it around with his four-wheeler, the rear end was not in neutral. So I'm hoping that didn't jack up the hydraulic pump or anything like that, but that would be another good thing to just kind of check by putting it back together here and just seeing what it does. So I might try and do that. Like I said, got quite a bit more cleaning here to do, but I think it is going to be worth slapping it back together and just giving it a shot and seeing what happens. Like I said, I don't think we can really make it any worse than it already is, so famous last words, right? But yeah, anyway, let's keep going. Okay, now that I have this cleaned up a little bit more, you can pretty easily see our point of failure there. The edge of that piston there is kind of curled up, and you can see the gap is much wider between the edge of the piston and the edge of the cylinder there. So whatever that was building up on the edge of the cylinder wall, obviously the piston was ramming into it, and that ended up taking a kind of a decent sized chunk out of it there. But I don't think it's to the point that it's, you know, going to cause a ton of problems. I mean, I wouldn't run it like that long term, but I think if we want to throw it back together and just to see if we have spark and if it's going to run, and actually test the hydraulic pump, that would be ideal. It'd be nice to know whether or not the pump is operational, or if I'm going to have to, you know, try and find a new pump for it too. So I think I'm going to run it through a few more cycles by hand here and try and get as much garbage out of the cylinder as I can. And then I think we're going to put it back together and try and get it to fire up. Alright, well she's to the point that I can spin it over with one hand now. So I'm going to clean up the head, bottom side of the head, and we'll throw it back on there. I got to look up the torque specs for the head bolts. Probably not super important right now, but just for the hell of it, I'll torque them down, and on the off chance this thing fires up, and we'll see what happens. But like I said, for now, real quick, I'm gonna try and clean up the bottom side of the head there. So we'll go ahead and get that done, and then slap that back on and see what happens. Got the battery charger going on it right now. I'm not sure how good or how bad that battery is that's in there. Seems to be taking a charge, so we'll see what it does. Got the head back on there now. Gonna torque it down here real quick. It seems like, or I should say, looks like it's gonna be 25 to 30 foot-pounds, and it's kind of like a star pattern going from the inside out. So we'll do that real quick, and I've had the battery boiling here for a while. We'll see if that's got enough juice to turn it over here once I get the starter mounted again, but let's go ahead and torque these down. Throw our ground back on here real quick too. I'm not going to put any of the guards back on for now because they're just going to end up coming right back off, I imagine, unless I decide to run it like this for a while. But, well, I mean, let's be honest, that's a good possibility, but who knows. We'll wait and see what she does. All right, I'm going to put the starter back in place, and I'm going to leave the spark plug out of it, and then we're just going to try and turn it over and see what happens. All right, let's give her a spin and see if she'll turn over. We'll throw the spark plug in the boot here and see if we can get spark too right away. Strong spark. I don't know if you can see that or not. Good enough for me. I don't know. What do you think we should do? See if she'll fire? I gotta imagine it's gonna run. Well, might as well try it. Worst case scenario, it blows up and we have to repower it, but yeah, I think it's gonna be fine. So let's give it a shot and see what it does. Let's see what this does. That's promising. doesn't sound too great. Kind of seems like she only wants to run with the choke on, but that could be a carburetor issue, I guess, or the fact that we're missing part of a piston. But can't tell what's rattling. I think it's actually the muffler or something up front. I lost my ignition now for some reason. Not sure why, but the key's not working. Don't think it's got anything to do with brakes or anything like that. Well, maybe it does. Runs like shit, but it runs. Pretty sure it's safe to say the rings are just gone out of it. That, and I'm sure it's got a plethora of carb issues. So definitely a good candidate for the rebuild, but as you can see from the little driving clip there, the pump works, so that's good. I did test out the hydraulic PTO on the tiller. The tiller works. The engine just doesn't have enough power to turn the pump under load. I had it out in the garden and just tried to till some of the freshly tilled dirt, loose soil that I've been tilling with the white and that repowered Craftsman back there. And I mean, it's loose soil, and this just, as soon as you drop the tiller down into the dirt, she just bogged right down. But yeah, I do think it's a good candidate for a rebuild. I don't think there's any reason to go down the road of a repower or anything like that. Like I said earlier, I've seen rebuild kits for the K301 for like 50 bucks on eBay. Got to look into some reviews there and see how good they actually are. If it's decent parts that are going to last a while, or if I'm just going to end up rebuilding it again in a year or two. But if that's the case, I'll probably go with one of the kits from Norman, from I Save Tractors. I've heard good things about parts from him, and just generally good things about the guy, so might end up going that route. So all in all, not a bad deal. I can't complain. Like I said, the last hydraulic tiller that I had, I sold for, I think, like $275. I had it listed for 300 bucks, and I mean everything that came with, everything in this package deal I got for $300. So I can't complain there. That's a hell of a deal if you ask me, even for an old clapped out Kohler. Like I said, it's rebuildable, and compared with some of the stuff that's out there today and the lawnmower / garden tractor market, these old machines, I mean, you can't beat them. So for that price and the amount of work that I'm going to have to put into it, I will happily save it and bring it all back to life. Well guys, I think that's going to do it. All in all, I think it's going to, a hell of a deal for what I paid and everything that I got. So stay tuned for more. As soon as I get a rebuild kit, we'll rip the Kohler out and get after that and get that refinished. And I'm hoping that we can get by with just doing a rebuild. I don't want to have to do a repower, so if I can keep it all stock, that would be fantastic. So thanks for sticking around to the end. Hope you enjoyed it. If there's any questions, anything else you'd like to see, anything specific on any of the garden tractors or any of the crap that I got sitting in the shop here, just let me know. Alright, thanks guys. We'll see you in the next one.